The simple pleasure of a cold beer is a cherished ritual for many. Few who lift a glass consider that this familiar beverage might harbor unseen dangers. Yet a new and unsettling truth is emerging from laboratories and scientific reports. Chemicals, persistent and potentially harmful, have been found lurking within popular beers. These are not the natural components of hops and barley. They are synthetic compounds, intruders in a centuries-old tradition of brewing. The contaminants in question are known as PFAS, or per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances. They are a large family of man-made chemicals. These chemicals have been used for decades in many industrial and consumer products. They are valued for their ability to resist heat, water, and oil. Now, these same resilient qualities make them a persistent problem in our world. They do not break down easily. Instead, they accumulate in the environment and, alarmingly, in living organisms, including humans. The thought of such chemicals in beer is deeply concerning. Beer is a product consumed widely, often without a second thought to its purity beyond the alcohol content. The journey from field to glass involves many steps. Each step offers a potential pathway for contamination if care is not taken. The silence around these chemicals must be broken. The alarming news about PFAS in beer did not arise from mere speculation. It is grounded in careful scientific investigation. Researchers, driven by growing concerns about PFAS prevalence, turned their attention to beverages. Among these, beer stood out due to its complex production process and global consumption. A specific study was designed to test a range of beers. These beers were sourced from different regions, including the United States and various European countries. The selection aimed to represent both large, well-known brands and smaller craft breweries. Scientists collect samples of beer, often directly from commercially available cans or bottles. These samples are then taken to specialized laboratories. There, highly sensitive equipment is used to detect and measure the presence of different PFAS compounds. Even trace amounts measured in parts per trillion can be identified. The researchers look for a spectrum of PFAS chemicals, as there are thousands of variations. The goal is to understand not just if PFAS are present, but also which types and at what concentrations. The findings from such comprehensive testing provide the data needed to assess the potential risks and to begin searching for solutions. PFAS are indeed present in a portion of the beers tested. The levels can vary significantly from one beer to another. This variability itself is a key finding. To grasp the significance of finding PFAS in beer, one must first understand what these chemicals are. PFAS stands for per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances. This is a large group encompassing thousands of different synthetic chemicals. They are characterized by bonds between carbon and fluorine atoms. These bonds are among the strongest in organic chemistry. This strong bond structure is what gives PFAS their desirable properties. They can repel water, grease, and stains effectively. This has made them useful in a vast array of products we use daily. PFAS are found in non-stick cookware, making pans easy to clean. They are used in food packaging, like pizza boxes and microwave popcorn bags, to prevent grease from soaking through. They are components of firefighting foams, highly effective at extinguishing difficult fuel fires. Stain-resistant carpets and waterproof clothing also owe their properties to PFAS. This persistence is why PFAS are often called forever chemicals. They do not readily break down in the natural environment. They can remain intact for decades, even centuries. When released into the air, water, or soil, they travel long distances. They can contaminate drinking water sources, accumulate in soil, and move through the food chain. Animals can ingest PFAS from contaminated water or food. This process is known as bioaccumulation. The presence of PFAS in our environment and consumer products is not merely an academic concern. These forever chemicals are linked to a disturbing array of health problems in humans. Decades of research, including studies on exposed populations and laboratory animals, have painted a concerning picture. Exposure to certain PFAS, even at low levels over long periods, can interfere with the body's natural functions. The harm they cause is often silent, developing slowly and without immediate, obvious symptoms. This makes their threat particularly insidious. One of the primary concerns is the impact of PFAS on the immune system. Studies have shown that exposure can reduce the effectiveness of vaccines in children. It can also increase susceptibility to infections, The endocrine system, which regulates hormones, is another target. PFAS can disrupt normal hormone functions, potentially leading to developmental problems, reproductive issues, and thyroid disorders. Furthermore, exposure to some PFAS has been associated with an increased risk of certain cancers. Kidney and testicular cancer are among those most frequently linked to higher PFAS levels in the body. Section 5. Studies revelations, what the numbers tell us. The studies investigating PFAS in beer brought forth specific and often unsettling findings. When the laboratory results were compiled, a clear pattern began to emerge. Not all beers were equally affected, and the concentrations of these forever chemicals varied considerably. The data showed that PFAS were detectable in a significant number of samples, confirming that this was not an isolated incident but a broader contamination issue. One particularly noteworthy finding from some research was the difference in PFAS levels between beers from large-scale commercial breweries and those from smaller craft operations. Surprisingly, some studies indicated that beers from smaller or microbreweries sometimes exhibited higher concentrations of certain PFAS compounds. This might seem counterintuitive, as smaller breweries are often perceived as using more traditional or purer methods. Section 6. Tracing the source. How PFAS invade the brewing process. Understanding how PFAS find their way into beer is crucial for preventing future contamination. The brewing process is complex, involving multiple stages and various materials, each presenting a potential entry point for these persistent chemicals. One of the primary suspects is the water used for brewing. Beer is, after all, mostly water. If the source water, whether from municipal supplies or private wells, is contaminated with PFAS, a common issue in many regions, these chemicals will inevitably end in the final product unless sophisticated filtration methods are employed. Beyond the water itself, materials used within the brewery can also be sources of PFAS. Section 7. Wider implications, beyond the brewery walls. The discovery of PFAS in beer sends ripples far beyond the individual consumer or the brewing industry. It is a microcosm of a much larger environmental and public health challenge posed by these forever chemicals. The presence of these contaminants in such a widely consumed product underscores the pervasive nature of PFAS pollution. It demonstrates how substances designed for industrial applications can infiltrate even the most unexpected corners of our daily lives, turning everyday items into potential sources of exposure. This realization forces a broader societal reckoning with our reliance on persistent chemicals. For public health agencies and regulators, findings like these add urgency to the ongoing efforts to understand and manage PFAS risks. It highlights the need for more comprehensive monitoring of food and beverage supplies. It also strengthens the case for stricter regulations on PFAS use, production, and disposal. Setting safe limits for PFAS in drinking water and food products becomes even more critical when common items like beer are found to be contaminated. Section 8. A consumer's guide making informed choices. For the average beer drinker, news of PFAS contamination can be unsettling, leaving many wondering what they can do. While the responsibility for ensuring product safety primarily lies with producers and regulators, consumers are not entirely without agency. Becoming informed is the first crucial step. Understanding what PFAS are, why they are a concern, and how they might enter the food chain empowers individuals to make more conscious choices. This knowledge allows consumers to ask pertinent questions and to support businesses that prioritize safety and transparency in their operations. Currently, it is difficult for consumers to know for certain which beers might contain PFAS without specific product testing and labeling, which is not yet widespread. However, individuals can pay attention to reports from consumer advocacy groups or environmental organizations that may conduct independent testing. Section 9. The path forward. For breweries and our future. The revelation of PFAS in some beers is not an endpoint, but a call for a new direction for breweries, regulators, and society. For the brewing industry, the path forward involves a commitment to vigilance and proactive measures. Breweries, both large and small, should begin by thoroughly investigating their own processes, This includes testing their water sources rigorously for PFAS and implementing effective filtration systems if contamination is found. Water is the primary ingredient in beer, and its purity is paramount for a safe and high-quality product. Furthermore, breweries need to scrutinize their entire supply chain. This means examining all materials that come into contact with the beer during production. Hoses, gaskets, filters, and even cleaning agents should be assessed to ensure they are not leaching PFAS. Sourcing ingredients like malt and hops from regions with lower environmental PFAS levels or from suppliers who can verify the absence of